we have a Geheimstaatspolizei, a
Yep.
Gestapo,
We sure
literally on the streets of America. If
no
this were-
badges, no name tags, no warrants shown, nothing but, and by the way, anybody can go on fucking Amazon right now
right.
and buy Velcro patches to put on your plate carrier that say ICE or FBI or Border
Right.
Patrol. And
That's right.
these guys have no accountability at all. And the excuse, oh, they're being doxxed. Fuck off.
No.
Fuck
No.
off. Fuck
No.
right
And
off.
this is going, I'm going to quote one of my favorite movies, right? Tom Clancy's Hunt for Red October. This is going to spin out of control.
This is Black Man Spy.
Hi, I'm Malcolm Nance. Welcome to this week's episode of Black Man Spy. And it's going to be a good one because I have on Rick Wilson, outspoken Republican strategist, leading conservative critic of Donald Trump, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, New York Times bestselling author, and host of the Enemies List podcast. This is going to be interesting, principally because I know how this is going to go. I have a list of questions, and when I have people who are as interesting and as dynamic as Rick is going to be, it's going to spin out of control. So without further ado, let's talk to Rick Wilson. Rick Wilson, welcome to this week's episode of Black Man Spy.
Hello, brother. How you been?
If there was a better time to get, I have to tell you, I always say that that I'm sort of now the shouty voice of the normal common sense American resistance. On Stephanie Miller's show, they call me Shouty McShoutface. And then I see your commentary, and you and Steve Schmidt, amongst others, and I go, wow, I'm really mute.
Yeah, there's a group of us who are not exactly quiet in our disappointment with the behavior of this current administration.
Joe Walsh is another one, right?
Oh yeah,
holy
sure.
Cow, that guy's on fire.
Joe has the heat.
Yeah, well, it brings the heat, and this comes to a point when I left MSNBC and I joined the Ukrainian army, and then I came back. One of the most relieving components of that is I could really say what I wanted to say to people.
Sure.
And at one point, I had gotten to slinging. I was having a whole bunch of right wingers come after me, and I was getting to the point where I was just slinging "Yo, mama." Adam, and in fact, I crushed some big 2 million follower influencer by going "Yo, mama," and then almost immediately you came out and did it to someone else, and I was like, oh, I could probably get a job at a future administration now. We've decided to level the communications playing field, but
it's important though to fight where the fight is.
Yes.
A lot of people who are like, well, we shall win this next election with our policy papers and in gentlemen's fisticuffs. No, you will not. It's going to be a bar fight.
Let me get my cooling saucer. You, sir, are far too hot. And I've complained about that in the last few podcasts, and we're going to get on that a little bit further on.
Sure.
But the point that I'm trying to get across to the listeners, viewers here is very simple. There is a place to raise your voice. There is a time and to elevate the conversation to where you are going to have to devolve into insults to recalibrate their positioning. A lot of the people that attack me, mainly vet bros, really, you have these MAGA vet bros that they now own the military, right? And they'll come after you with everything.
Think they do.
Yeah, or at least they think they do. But these people will come after you, and they're angry when you don't play by the rules they've set for you, Rick Wilson, which is to be the person who will actually engage them in debate and discussion while they're insulting, in my instance, my late wife, for example, in her military tombstone. There's this weird thing
Jesus
going
Christ.
on. And to me, it's like, okay, I can engage in combat as well. My
Yeah.
first question before we get on to Trump Russia is, how do we encourage other people, particularly our elected politicians, to understand that this isn't bringing a knife to a knife fight. Okay, this is bringing an atomic bomb to a knife fight.
There is a lesson that I after 10 years of doing this, of fighting this rising authoritarian movement, is that courage is the highest virtue. And if you are not afraid of people, what they're going to say about you, or what they're going to say to you, or how they're going to try to diss you, or how they're going to try to intimidate you, if you're not afraid of them, you have a superpower. If you're not afraid of people, you have a superpower. Their superpower is shamelessness. Ours has to be courage. And this is a world where they know that a lot of people will shut up. They know a lot of people will back down. They know a lot of people will go, oh man, I don't want to have to deal with my boss or my friends or my neighbors or my wife or my husband or my friends or my family, with them about being in a fight. Look, Nick, not everybody's suited for it. I get it. But everybody who's going to resist this movement that's happening in this country is eventually going to be called on to step up to that line and say something publicly, and say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm not going to be quiet when you people do shit that is against the Constitution and the law and American values. And if you learn to do that, listen, I tell people this all the time. I sleep great at night. I don't worry about anybody. I just don't. I stopped giving a fuck about what they think about me. And therefore I can speak the truth. I don't worry about it. It's an important power.
Yeah. And in fact, I would like to say it really releases you. And that's what I was drawing at the beginning of this. It releases you from the conventions that say, if you speak your mind, if you live as a true American patriot who has a opposing opinion and is willing to shout or engage in, slinging obscenities when necessary, you don't have to worry about that anymore. I think it was Jasmine Crockett the other day who was having that talk about the standards to become a president, right? And it's like, done. I can shoot puppies because the Secretary of Homeland Security murdered dogs and goats. And I don't ever want to hear anybody say, well, I'm sorry, you can't, you don't meet that standard. We have got the lowest standards in American history right now.
The bar is subterranean right now.
Yes, but the bar is subterranean for people who are subterraneans, right? For people who don't care about, that old thing about the pig in the mud liking to fight. Pigs like to fight and they get muddy and you get muddy too. But you should then take them to the slaughterhouse.
That is exactly where I was headed with this. As a person who has had some small experience with dealing with rearing pigs at one point in my life, and also with wild boar and wild hog infestations, let me tell you, the slaughterhouse part is the part where the tally gets leveled out, where all the messiness gets leveled out, and they think you won't. If they think you won't fight with them, then they will keep pressing. That old thing about the bayonet goes in until it hits bone.
Right.
They will keep pressing and keep pressing and keep trying to hurt you, keep trying to fuck you up until you fight back. So, people who, and there are still people today who are confused. Like last weekend or 2 weekends ago, excuse me, there's an article in the New York Times Magazine about this Lincoln Project ad we did about the Kendrick Lamar ad we did about Trump not like us, about the pedophilia, right?
Right.
And the guy who was writing is like, I couldn't figure it out. It was powerful. His brain wasn't like connecting to why we did it that way. It's because you have to fight where the fight is. Like you said, you don't bring a knife to a nuke fight. You don't bring a throw pillow to a gunfight. You fight in the way that people are paying attention now in this economy of mental headspace being where the politics is waged. So,
but this brings the question, why do I have to lean into a group of former Republicans, okay, who do I was a former Republican. I was a
Yep.
Colin Powell style Republican.
Sure.
First person I ever voted for,
Yeah.
unfortunately, was Ronald Reagan. And, national security strong, socially liberal. We all come down in the lower quadrant of the
All,
XY axis now.
all the
Why
all the
are
normal things that we used to have.
why are these former Republicans in the Lincoln Project the real voice of the resistance for the Democratic Party?
Look, there are plenty of people in the Democratic world that are fighting, but a lot of them are fighting in the old way. Like I said a minute ago, it's like I still hear from Democrats like, we will win on our prescription drug policy or our education. I'm like, no, you won't.
No, you won't.
God bless you, you sweet summer children, but you will not win on those things. Those are not where the voters are. And if you think that's where the voters are, I have many bridges to sell you in metropolitan areas. It just doesn't work that way. And while they mean well, and I'm a big believer, if you got a coalition, you got to it's a big coalition. Everybody's in the boat. We got to all pull the oars in the same direction. Great. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to pull oars on policy, and some are going to pull it on organizing and voter registration. My belief is there's got to be a role, as I think that's, modestly what we play at Lincoln, is a role of showing people how the other team will set a narrative, how the other team will wage a fight, how the other team will battle you, so that you really understand and have ways to punch back on a group of people who are really hardcore about this stuff and who are really vicious about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you're absolutely right about that. And it's easy to be hardcore when it's 1934 and you're about to purge the brown shirts and create the black shirts. We've got a nation here that's got a lot of problems. And I think that the Lincoln Project videos that you've done, the most recent one you've done was the one where sex traffickers, drug addicts, and serial killers would like to thank the Republican Party for getting rid of the FBI and making them a bunch of beat cops, right? And so that now they and child traffickers and white collar criminals can steal, rob, murder, and traffic in children because there are now no federal investigators investigating anything other than the Clintons, the kids down in Southeast D.C. near the Navy Yard to see if they're not walking straight from school. Right. And then they're investigating. Oh, that's right. 1,000 other FBI officers that investigated the January 6th insurrectionists.
Right.
So law enforcement isn't doing anything.
Yeah. And I mean, look, one of the things that I go back to a lot of the time, Malcolm, is that there are reasons in this world why crime is a problem in this country. There are reasons that we need to face up to about how this country has to make the streets safer and neighborhoods safer. Almost none of them involve guys in MRAPs parked in front of Union Station, or as I like to put it, in Georgetown with a bunch of DEA agents outside of Firebase Sephora in Georgetown. It's all bullshit, and they know it. And you know what it is? They had to check the Phoenix Cafe to see if there are any Iranians in there. Right. And there are. It's Reza Pahlavi, right? The guy Al-Qaeda's hanging out at Cafe Milano. Yeah, on M Street in Georgetown. So, this is crazy. And you're not joking about the MRAPs. I saw they're Max Pros, actually. Pros, yeah. The mine-resistant armored personnel carriers belonging to the FBI SWAT teams. Right. And, just lined up out there as a show of force. Now, you know what? I got to tell you something. There has never been a moment in the history of the FBI where they were as both seemingly heavy politically and incompetent at the exact same time. J. Edgar Hoover could bring down strength, but he did it through the credibility of the FBI. Being a heavy organization, its secret ability to investigate you. And then when you woke up one morning, they would be at your front door with an indictment. Right. Now it's Sergeant they're doing Sergeant Murphy, walking up and down the block,
shaking his shillelagh, shaking
I
his
hope you
billy
kids are
club.
keeping your noses clean.
Keep your nosy. Oh my God, fucking Officer Krupke would be a pretty good analogy of this
Right?
from West Side
Right?
Story, right? You know,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
look, none of this had to happen this way, except for it had to happen this way because Trump needed a distraction off of Epstein, all the other bullshit.
Mhm.
And this is also about Trump had a lot of problems with his base in the last couple of months because of Epstein.
Right.
And he needed something that was going to trigger his base and they were going to go, oh yeah, the boss is back doing what we want. And the reality is we can't pretend there's not a racial signifier in this from Trump about why I'm in DC, because those people need to be kept in check. And he's talking to two groups of people. One is national political reporters who all live in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Why are all the vehicles in the neighborhoods they live in? So that they'll report about Trump doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And the other group is, the white male MAGA guy out in Ass Crack, Arkansas, who is kind of pissed at Trump because he won't release the Epstein files, but now this is a good distraction.
Mm-hmm. And they love these military displays for people who really don't like the military or veterans, and a whole
Right.
crew of veterans that belong on that side of the aisle. It's exciting to them. This reminds me of the scene in the movie. Did I say movie? The documentary,
Right.
Idiocracy.
The documentary Idiocracy.
That was brought back from the future, where the lawyer and the hero of the story are in a car, and the cops pull them over, and they get out to run, and then the cops just shoot the truck, with like 10,000 bullets, accidentally knock down an airplane out of the sky, and even the lawyer who's from that society gets excited, and they all go, oh, 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 right? They love what we used to call in the military bombs, guns, and helicopter rides.
Yeah.
They love the excitement of seeing guys in tactical formation and checking to see now, because of MAGA has now militarized. They like to see what you're wearing on your body armor.
Right.
Where are your patches? Where are your med pouch and all that stuff? And it's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is what the FBI has devolved into.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of these guys who clearly do not spend too much time in the field with their 511s and their Punisher t-shirts underneath their body armor. I'm like, come on, cosplay motherfuckers.
Not a one of them has ever read Punisher comic books, obviously.
Right, clearly.
Punisher would be shooting these guys
all
down.
of them.
I mean, it's just crazy. But and I'm sorry that we, for a national security podcast, I'm a son of Philadelphia, born, raised, steeped in it, made my decision to go into the military intelligence behind Independence Hall when I was 18, and next to Commodore Barry. And I just find it absolutely infuriating that what I have now is I have an America that is everything that we were warned about by the founding fathers.
That's right.
Everything, people always ask me, who's your favorite founding father? For me, I would people go, oh, you must be a Jefferson guy. You must be a Hamilton guy. You must be a Franklin guy. I'm a George Washington guy.
100%.
Washington understood that his lieutenants, his subordinates, the Congress people that he had to deal with all had to be balanced. And that balance was the most important factor in the relinquishment of power in America. Yep. And that leads me to my technical question that I ask almost every panelist that comes on here. What the fuck?
Yeah, well, what the fuck is actually a really pendant question, as they say. Look, there are a couple of things we have to understand about where Trump is mentally right now. He understands. He is a survivor. Let's be real about Trump about one big thing. He is a fucking survivor. This guy will push and push and push and push. Like any bully, he'll push until he can't push anymore. And he's going to keep pushing on one big thing in the next 2 years. He wants to come back in 2028. And honestly, if we have a Republican Congress, there's a really good chance they'll just go, yeah, sure, boss. and he wants to run this country as an authoritarian. This is a guy who is not interested in the small d of democracy or the small r of republicanism. This is a guy who really is a fan of authoritarianism and kleptocracy and on oligarchy and fascism. And I hate all those terms in a lot of ways, but if the jackboot fits, wear it. This is a guy who does not believe in America.
Yeah, well, I think that he has his own vision of America.
Sure.
It's a vision that I learned about when I was a child, when I read the Richie Rich comic books.
Right.
It's
also a vision that, back to the aforementioned founders, that the founders would go, get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? Because as you mentioned, Washington believed that this chief executive, and he lived this out to the fullest. He believed the chief executive must always live with restraint and discipline and focus, and to not ever believe he was a king, because that was what we had lost so many Americans fighting against. But when Washington established the tradition of a peaceful departure from office, the peaceful transfer of power, I mean, it's not like we didn't learn that this son of a bitch would not do that on January 6, 2021. And so what is anyone's belief structure that he's gonna if he has, especially if there's a Republican majority, that the House doesn't just say, nope, we're certifying Donald Trump for a third term. Fuck you. You think the Supreme Court's going to go against him?
Well, I had that discussion with Dahlia Lithwick about 3 weeks ago, and she just straight up said, this Supreme Court has made a decision as a conservative body that the only way to move the conservative agenda is to use the 6-3 and to make any decision that is necessary to further Donald Trump and the Republican power. And that should a president, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, whoever comes.
They're going to rediscover all of the prerogatives of the executive or of the legislative and judicial branch if there's a Democratic president.
And she said they will shamelessly reverse them.
100%.
Shamelessly.
100%.
But what that gives us is a situation where now the Supreme Court is now a body that should not be believed, that will have no credibility. I call it the red court.
Malcolm, I call it the red court now. It is. There's nothing about them at this point in our history that should give an American confidence that they're going to rule based on the law. They have become the parody that they claim they were against forever. It was always like, we don't want activist judges. Now they are the ultimate activist judges.
Yeah, well, they absolutely are. I think they've also become a form of Donald Trump's star chamber.
Sure.
Where they are identifying and executing policy that Trump himself may not even know that he needs to have. But by giving them this unrestrained, unrestricted power, they are making themselves. I mean, they're also nullifying themselves in a way to become a rubber stamp for Trump and conservatism.
They have walked away from their constitutional obligations to balance executive power and to validate the constitutionality of both legislative and executive actions. They're just now like, whatever you got, whatever you need, boss. What do you want? It should trouble people more than it does, frankly.
Well, we're really in the slow boil of the frog situation here. And of course, the people that I see that are calling it out the loudest, apart from Lincoln Project and some others, Gavin Newsom, who has clearly decided to incorporate the word jihad into the context of how people deal with Trump.
Gavin Newsom has figured it out. What has he figured out? He's figured out where the fight really is. He's figured out how to go in and attack Trump in a way that triggers. I mean, this is always the Republican Party of today, the MAGA party, I call it.
Right.
Their whole thing is, oh, fuck your feelings, snowflake. But now that Newsom has learned how to perfectly mock Donald Trump, Watch Fox News in the last 24 hours, and every show they're like crapping themselves. Dana Perino's like, how dare he engage in this absolutely outrageous man? Yes, more, Gavin, do more.
Childlike behavior is what I think one of the
Right.
phrases was. Doesn't, what did she say?
It's
Doesn't
not terribly
meet
presidential.
the dignity of a governor. Oh
Right.
my gosh,
Yeah.
get the smelling
Yeah.
salts.
I would like to just go ahead and reacquaint all the Fox News hosts with the fact that Donald Trump is literally a guy who has people exit through the fucking gift shop at the White House. He's a rampant criminal. He's a scumbag. He's a pedophile enabler with his buddy Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't want to hear shit about shit from these people about the dignity of the White House when Donald fucking Trump, a man who wears heels and makeup every day and a bizarre like lemur fur wig hair hat thing. I don't want to hear anything about the dignity of the White House. Newsom's brilliance here, his social media team's brilliance here, is that they started to dismantle the meme image of Trump that exists in the minds of his own voters. By holding this mirror up to Trump's own voters, they're like, oh yeah, I guess maybe Donald doesn't really stand on the tank with no shirt on, holding an M60, firing it at dinosaurs. None of the stuff that they always loved about how liberals were triggered by Trump's meme war. Mm-hmm. When they have it put back to them, oh my God, it just blows their minds. They just lose their shit. It's kind of magnificent.
Well, I mean, I have certainly enjoyed this last week, certainly with all of the grok generated photos. Right. Newsom is just dressed as Captain America. And then they did that great side-by-side photo of Trump in high school and Newsom in JD Vance in middle school. Right. And Newsom was a great looking baseball playing.
That was a handsome
all-American guy. I mean, come on.
That was a handsome motherfucker.
Still is. Yeah. And the problem is that now this puts us in a sort of a bind. Joy Reid and I were discussing this about 4 weeks ago about why Democrats won't stand up as a body is because they believe they have to have a leader. And that the only time that they have a leader is once every 4 years as they work their way towards candidates for the presidency. And they don't believe in leadership, or it might be staring them in the face. They just don't glom onto it the way the Republicans do. Newsom is clearly out and ahead of this.
He decided he's going to be a leader. And if that means he has to be a dick, well, guess what? Churchill was a dick.
Yes.
Roosevelt was a dick. Big leaders are often dicks. Be a dick sometimes. It doesn't kill you. In fact, the idea that we're going to win with somebody who comes in and has the soft, like, we're going to all get back and sing Kumbaya again. No, that's not what people are going to buy. They're not going to pay for that. They're not going to buy that. They don't want that. They want a leader who understands we're in a war with evil people. Yeah. And we're going to use all the techniques. And we're starting to we sort of mildly say this now, but we're starting to see some Lincoln Project style Democrats out there who are swinging at the fences, who don't give a fuck, who are not worried about whether the New York Times says this outrageous and transgressive behavior is not dignified. Who fucking cares? Look who we're up against. We're up against a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, what I call the hate machine.
Yeah.
And it is everything from these Silicon Valley authoritarian tech bros who don't believe in democracy to the MAGA media complex, which is 10 times larger than the rest of the media combined.
Absolutely.
To this culture war shit that goes on forever and ever and ever. All of it together is a very grim place for America to find itself. And if we don't start fighting against that gigantic hate machine in a way that penetrates with voters, they will win.
Yeah, well, they're going to win because they rely on our apathy. I have this bumper sticker on my car. I covered my Biden-Harris sticker with this one that said, what was it, by Plato, that all it requires for evil men to win is the apathy of the voters, or paraphrasing. And it's as simple as that. Yeah. We have three Americas. And I'm actually working now with, I have a new political action committee, FAFO PAC, right?
Right.
FAFO PAC,
Nice.
which
Nice.
but it stands for Focused Action, Focused Objectives.
Oh,
Because one of the
well
things
done.
I've noticed about these PACs is they like to go out and they like to collect money. They don't really do anything. You guys do something. You put messages out. I wish they could be broadcast on, cable television into the red zones in order to, rile them up even further. But
Any billionaires listening, give me a call. We'll be up on the air in about a day if you hook us up.
We had that discussion last week. There are no such thing as liberal billionaires. There are none. No one can seem to give anyone a dime. The ones that they do are waiting for the leader to shake up through, and emerge for the presidential, and then they will give money in the low millions. There is no Sheldon Adelson who's going to shell out $100 million at one time and then buy his wife.
There's really at this point no Democratic Elon Musk who spent $250 million last time, which was real money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he got it all back in like a day in interest.
Yeah, and look, a lot of what we do today, a lot of our advertising is very digitally focused. We've got very good data on who to talk to, but this idea that the other side is going to leave any tool unused is just wrong. People better be ready. This is going to be a wild election in 2026. The role of AI in this election, the role of disinformation will never be more powerful than what you're about to see. And the shenanigans that are going to happen in this election cycle will make anything we've had in the past look mild by comparison.
Yeah, and this is my problem, because mild by comparison can get pretty damn wild. It really struck me that in the run up to the 2020 election or 2024 election, that every time there's a movie that comes out that's done by a conservative or somebody who, I don't know, thinks that the timing would be clever. 2016, it was that movie Benghazi, Super Soakers of Benghazi, whatever the name of 13 hours.
13 hours.
Right? Know a little bit of something about Benghazi.
A little bit,
Benghazi during 2011 and all that period of time. Was actually in an airport going to Tripoli that day that the embassy was taken. I worked over there. But that movie changed a lot of needles in the white guy brosphere on the meta narrative of Hillary Clinton herself.
She personally denied them drone coverage and all that shit.
Yeah, okay. The physics, space, and time actually have to be adhered to, all that intelligence stuff. Not to mention the CIA staff in that building were all combat veterans from Iraq, Afghanistan. Then the paramilitary force showed up. They made it look like that was some sort of accident. But prior to 2024 was the movie Civil War.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, I'm a gun collector. I'm a long range shooter. I hang out, in these websites where these guys are at, and there's an entire body of fat beer drinking, never done nothing, never served in the government
6 motherfuckers.
Meal Team 6, right? Gravy SEALs. Every one of them really led me to, these people led me to write my last book. They Want to Kill Americans, right? That there were Americans right now who are hot and heavy to dress like ICE is doing right now, the SWAT teams, to get out there and to become, as I said on Bill Maher famously, self-deputized if Donald Trump wins. That they will be his unofficial, maybe even deputized enforcers if this moves to bigger cities and we see resistance, armed resistance. Because I believe we're just one gun battle away from the South and the West screaming about we've got to protect ourselves from the brown people who have guns, and somebody going out there and some militia doing a massacre.
But you can see right now, you've got these governors who are pushing National Guard troops to D.C. suddenly all over the South, which, by the way, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, all have vastly higher crime rates per capita than D.C. does.
Without any question.
But they're sending their guys there. And a lot of people are now sort of fetishizing this whole bullshit, thinking,
Mhm.
oh, well, I could be an ICE guy too. I could get the bonus. I could go kick down doors. I could be one of these badasses, riding around in DC or riding around, in LA, and I could put those people in their place. And it's fucked up. It's sick. It's stupid. But your book was right. There is a cultural thing, and guys like you in particular have seen this up close. Radicalization, there's not a vast sea of difference between that weirdo MAGA gun guy on AR15.com or whatever the fuck. Now ARFCOM's a little different. There's some more crazy parts of that. And somebody who was brought into ISIS or Al Qaeda. They read these sacred texts. They watch these videos. They get told over and over again, maybe you'll die, but you'll be remembered as the hero who saved your people.
Right.
And that shit should scare Americans tremendously, because Americans aren't supposed to live in that world.
The problem is, I think they're bemused right now.
Sure.
And I think I said this the other day. I can't remember which platform it was. I'm disgusted with the news media that are not shouting as loud as you and I right now about the loss of American rights, American citizens being arrested, these takedowns in the streets. We have a Geheimstaatspolizei, a Gestapo, literally on the streets of America. If
no badges, no name tags, no warrants shown, nothing but, and by the way, anybody can go on fucking Amazon right now,
right,
and buy Velcro patches to put on your plate carrier that say ICE or FBI or Border Patrol. And
that's right.
These guys have no accountability at all. And the excuse, oh, they're being doxxed. Fuck off.
No.
Fuck off.
And we need to recalibrate that. I'm a big fan. Look, I'm a big fan of law and order. I trained hundreds and hundreds of cops in counterterrorism. Hundreds, multiple states where I've trained these guys. And they were all about doing it by procedure. They saw themselves as the arbiter of, good versus evil. And now they have been slow roasted into believing that, hey, maybe maybe Pinochet was right taking people over the Pacific Ocean and dumping them out of aircraft. Maybe the Argentinian junta were right in
throwing them out of the back of airplanes.
Maybe we should be the Tonton Makut of white men in the United States. This is going, I'm going to quote one of my favorite movies, right? Tom Clancy's Hunt for Red October. This is going to spin out of control. It's gonna, and we don't seem to have anyone, because I'm sorry to say it, the median rational man in America was the educated, government serviced white man, right? But those men in the past were steeped in World War II and the war against communism. There was a patriotic intellectual basis behind it, to where you would never get somebody reading the National Review talking about, well, maybe we should just go over and become part of Mao's China or side ourselves with, Brezhnev's communism. The way that it's happening now, and it's not ignorance. They're educated white men are now viewing themselves as part of the white male tribe, and that Trump is their avatar of greatness.
It's a ridiculous avatar. And again, this is a guy who has never spent 5 minutes outside that wasn't on a golf course. This is never a guy who has fired a gun. This is never a guy who has suffered any kind of moment that wasn't going to be, taken care of by daddy or by lawyers in his whole life. And the irony is, you have people who entered service in law enforcement a lot of times with good intentions, and now they are serving someone who A, doesn't give a fuck about them, and who B, is evil. I mean, that to me is, we can't underscore or undercount the fact that Trump is a bad human being. He's not a good guy. He's not a a person you should role model after. He's not a person you should want your kids to emulate. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, he's the single most documented liar in American history. And they
Right.
stopped at 33,000 8 years ago. I mean, the man has probably pushed 100,000 lies, and he's a pathological liar. It just happens. It
Oh
springs
yeah,
out of him.
right. Nothing about Donald Trump's lying is deliberate. It's all just a reflex action. He'll lie just because telling the truth isn't like easy. He lies because it's easy to lie.
Well, that gives me a quick hot moment to transition to our last question about the I don't even want to use the word summit. I guess the annual fitness evaluation.
Yeah, the quarterly
Alaska.
review.
That's right. But my favorite part of that idiocy and disgrace that I saw was when Trump was on the red carpet and Putin was coming down. Trump started clapping like a trained seal.
Yep.
But I realized, just as I'm asking the question, the last place that I saw that was the video of him standing next to Jeffrey Epstein clapping when the dancers were there.
God.
And it's like, oh my God, this is beyond
really good.
romance.
Holy shit, there's an ad.
I get paid in double espresso. I'm expecting a Starbucks card. But it was a disgrace. But I think within him, this is his guys. Yeah, Putin coming, Putin. And he so admires. Well, first off, he clearly admires the palace in Leningrad that he had, right?
Right, because he's turned the Oval Office into like Timu Liberace Bukkake on the walls, whatever the fuck it is.
I was going to say Liberace puke, but Bukkake is maybe better. Just crazy.
I mean, he loves the trappings of royalty. He's always loved the royalty angle of anything. He loves, and he looks at Putin as the king of Russia. He doesn't say he's the jailer of Russia. He's the oppressor of Russia, the dictator of Russia. He thinks he's the king. And Trump would love to see a world divided. And I won't say this is a completely articulated thing in Trump's mind, but there are people around him who like this.
Oh, yeah.
They want to see a world where Putin controls Europe and Trump controls the Americas and Canada, and Xi controls China. They think the world should be divided up into three
tripolar
spheres.
world,
and that way, Trump can maximize the profit center that he has developed here in America. Putin can do his thing. They hate Europe. Africa becomes a jump ball, and the Chinese, the Russians fight it out there. And as you know, this is a world where Russia is a third-rate military power with a first-rate propaganda service and a first-rate intelligence service. China is both bigger and smaller than it seems as a threat. But the idea that America would invite a dictator to our soil, a war criminal to our soil, force American troops on their hands and knees to roll out a red carpet, and that Trump would act like he's meeting his long-lost high school girlfriend. It's disgusting, man. It's fucking repulsive.
Or Jeffrey Epstein reincarnated.
Or Jeffrey Epstein at a party. I thought she was 16. I did, I swear.
I did this analysis when I wrote, by the way, that tripolar world, I wrote a whole book about called The Plot to Destroy Democracy. And that Trump really wanted to break that world apart. Alexander Dugin's philosophy of neo-Eurasianism, Russia taking Europe, the United States taking the Western Hemisphere. And that Trump really wanted to be part of what I call the axis of autocrats.
Yep.
And he wants Hungary, Egypt, Israel under Netanyahu. These people align themselves around money that is so high that it's above governments. Beyond the oligarchy, the globogarchy is what I called it. And the only time they meet is at parties or on their $100 million mega yachts.
Right. And look, again, I'm going to even cede this point for 1 second, although it galls me to do it.
Oh, geez.
There are people who support Donald Trump who believe they are patriotic Americans, who believe that because of all the propaganda they've consumed over 25, 30 years of Fox, that it's communism or Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But everything that they projected on what the communists wanted to do, Trump does.
Yeah.
Using the secret police to oppress people, that's Trump. Taking over control of private enterprise, that's Trump. Governing above the rule of law, that's Trump.
Mm-hmm.
None of the things that Trump does dismays them. They don't get mad about it. They're like, oh, okay, well, it's just Trump being Trump. But the structure they're building with him is authoritarianism. It is in fact increasingly fucking state communism. Because Trump's like, I want to own Intel and I want to own this company, and America should tell TikTok we should own TikTok. All these things, they add up, Malcolm, to a very fucked up, not American version of the presidency, not American version of what people claim to want and should want.
Okay. I've got to get a coffee into me right now, because that's the only thing that's going to calm me down is a triple espresso.
All right,
it just gets more and more depressing. Well, Rick Wilson, thank you for coming and
we will keep swinging the sword.
Suck.
All right, brother. Good talking to you, man. We'll see you soon.
All right, take care. What did I tell you? This sitting down with Rick Wilson is like sitting down with a case of dynamite and a 24-pack of Budweiser, right? I mean, you just feel like you're going to have to put a match to those things and throw them into the water and see how many fish come up. I mean, I always go into these podcasts with guests like Rick, and I feel like, oh, this is going to be not only interesting, we will have a way of making this descent, a roller coaster like descent into hell, and the end of democracy a little more amusing. But more importantly, I learn a lot more than even the silly questions that I ask. And I had a whole series of questions. This was supposed to have been all about Trump and Putin. Far less important than the damage that's being done, not only to our national security, but to the foundations and structures of American democracy itself. We have a city that is being occupied by U.S. forces. That is the only way to describe it. We have an American Gestapo force that is rising up. And sometimes you got to attack that like Gavin Newsom's doing with humor, or sometimes you got to frame it the right way, the way the Lincoln Project and guys who are shouty like Rick Wilson do it. With that, thank you for coming to another episode of Black Man Spy. You can listen to Black Man Spy on Apple, Stitcher, your other fine podcast locations. I am principally found at Malcolm Nance Malcolm Nance at substack.com. Sorry about that. Or malcolmnance.bsky.com, at Blue Sky, at Malcolm Nance on Twitter. I'm on Facebook somewhere, and YouTube, the Black Man Spy podcast. Listen to it, subscribe to it. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to all of these podcasts, but my long format, deep national security analysis is done on Substack. Please become a subscriber on Substack. And with that, I'm going to go get that triple espresso I was talking about, because right now I'm so stoked a triple espresso will bring me down like a sedative. So I will see you next week on the beach.